Thank you. I am privileged to present Paul Garnes, who, as executive producer of Selma in 2014, headed a team that was honored with an Academy Award nomination for Best Picture. And even though Paul's list of professional accomplishments is already quite extensive and varied, and even though he is showing a little salt and pepper in his beard, he is still only now entering the prime of his career. Paul's career started here. Paul is a member of the family, our family. He graduated 20 years ago, but most of us on the faculty knew him best as the person who ran the Film Equipment Center for a couple of years after he completed his studies. I say Film Equipment Center because it sounds kind of civil, and it is now the official name. Even Paul might find that name sort of surprising. We called it the cage in those days, and many of us still do, including me. The cage is where various rites of passage take place, where sophomore workers treat first-year students with the same disdainful way they were treated only a couple of semesters before. But the workers in the cage take on the personality of the person running it. When Paul ran the cage, it was a place of genuine kindness, with an understanding of what the power of the teachable moment is. This is where much of our learning about how to be a professional takes place. I think all of us on the faculty prefer to believe that we have something to do with the success of our students. In that sense, we are never really surprised when someone is successful. Paul's career is no surprise. What we had absolutely nothing to do with is how decent a human being he is. The myth of sharp elbows and irritating behavior in Hollywood is just that, a myth. Some of the smartest and nicest people I've ever met work in the business. Paul is one of those people. My personal favorite project that Paul produced was The Middle of Nowhere, written and directed by Ava DuVernay. What a nice collaboration that must have been. This small movie tells the story of Ruby, a woman who sacrifices so much, including medical school, simply to visit and focus on her imprisoned husband's well-being, even though he may not totally deserve it. It shows a complex character on a journey of personal self-discovery. This film reminds us that good movies are not simply about transcribing or tapping into experience. Creating meaningful cinema is an act of imaginative empathy. Paul is that guy who understands empathy, who shows us that a career can be successful even for those who are nice and decent as a first principle. President Kim, I present Paul Garnes to receive the degree of Doctor of Arts.
Paul Garnes, by the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Arts, honoris causa, with all of the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Don. That was very nice of you. I want to say that I was confronted by Don and Paul Heddle just to make sure that I wouldn't say anything embarrassing about them. So I'm going to stick to my word and not do that. Hey, class of 2016. So I didn't, because I was sitting up here and you guys were down there, I couldn't do it. I didn't get a chance to do the whole selfie thing. So I'm going to take a selfie with you guys, all right? So if they turn the lights up enough, I'm going to do it right here. So on this, your graduation day, I'm very humbled and honored to be the recipient of this honorary degree. Columbia College was home for me for many years. And the last time I wore this cap and gown and crossed the stage, I was just excited as you guys were about my future in the film and television industry. I'm so humbled for the opportunity to return and address you, the next generation of Columbia College creators, innovators, and artists. I pondered what I could say or share that would get you prepared for what happens to you next. And I'll be honest, it's a tough world out there for those of us who choose an artist's path. It's even tougher for those who may represent the tiny percent of people looking to tell stories about the forgotten, the underrepresented, or the voiceless. And I've made my share of mistakes. I've gained quite a bit of insight since struggling through my first film tech class right here on the campus. I've spent thousands of hours on TV sets, movie locations, scout vans, and in the writer's room, where I've been fortunate to see the world through the eyes of some of the most creative people on the planet. So what advice could I give you that will help elevate your craft, give you a head start in your career? The question that I hear most often from those who want to get into the industry or from high school students or from recent graduates is, where do we get started? How do I begin? Seriously, that's the question I hear from most people. And I have good news for you. Because you chose Columbia College, because you were educated by working industry professionals, and because this was a safe place to grow, to make mistakes, you've already started. This is where I learned how to make a movie, about lighting a scene, setting f-stops, adjusting a shutter or exposing negative, which I don't think many people do anymore. Here's where I learned the mechanics of being a filmmaker, the elements of what I would need to work in the business as a professional. And I've always felt like I had an upper hand to many of my peers. Trust me, if you're graduating today, you've already started. Your education here will hold up against any film or art school education in the world. Picking up a camera in your cinematography class and composing a shot that moves a viewer without saying a word means you've already started. Taking words and arranging them in such a way that it stirs someone's soul in a screenwriting class means you've already started. Using sets, costumes, lights to suspend someone's disbelief, or directing an actor to reach somewhere else, to tell a story about somebody else, so that anyone watching can understand that moment means you've already started. And let me be clear, that process of entering the creative field reaches even further back than your classes here. You just didn't know what to call it then. It may have started when you were younger, maybe when you wrote a short story in high school for the first time, or picked up a camera and shot your first film. The time you spent crafting or sketching or building with Legos or scraps or any of the stuff that adults around you may have said is a waste of time, that's when you started. You see, you don't have to try and figure out how to get started because you already have. You've been a creative being for as long as you can remember, a deep thinker, a problem solver, an artist. One of the things I loved about film school was it was a place that oozed passion. I just remember spending so many late evenings and early mornings working on projects, and we would sometimes come up with the most off-the-wall ideas, and it was so cool to be in a place where you could just do it. I remember doing a little sci-fi short while in school, and the director wanted to shoot a scene deep inside a city sewer line. So we had to go in front of the city council and explain why a bunch of 20-year-olds wanted such unprecedented access to a city utility. For some bizarre reason, they let us have it, and we got the most amazing shot, but it was because you just couldn't tell us no at the time. In school, it seems like you're only limited by your own ambition and the 100-foot load of film that you can carry in your camera. But many people lose that when they graduate. They get out into the world and they become limited by the ambitions of the ones around them. I think some of that is due to the belief that we need someone's permission to validate our crazy in the sewer shooting ideas. Like I said, in film school, you're accustomed to taking some harebrained pitch, taking it to your instructor, and making a film expressing your feelings and emotions. Then when you're in the industry, you make that same passionate pitch to the studio, and they quickly tell you your idea is too far out there or too harebrained. It'll never work. And for many of us, that bitter taste of the first no stays with us our entire careers. It limits us. It stops us from reaching what's next. And that is when it's important for you to remember that you learn what you learned here and acknowledge that it's been burning inside of you for years before coming here. The industry needs you. It needs your voice. It needs your ideas. Without you and your experiences and your point of view, the whole business, the whole industry, its point of view becomes stagnant and old. It may feel at times that the whole world is fighting against you to stay in your lane and play the game. But I'll tell you, most of the time, it's not fighting you, it's fighting change. But that change is the only way that we all survive. The world wants you to be normal, but we all know none of us in a cap and gown in this auditorium fit the definition of the word normal. We are the outsiders, the game changers, the conversation makers. We tell the stories that shape future generations. Never forget that or lose your passion. Your journey started long before graduation, and with passion and hard work, you'll do whatever you want to do. Remember, you don't need anyone's permission to do it, and that's important because what you bring to the table is unique and special, and you're well prepared to do it. Congratulations.